Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where we're going to be speaking with Angelo Celli from one of my absolute favorite punk bands of all time, Bracket. You're listening to the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. The Powered by Rock podcast was created to help showcase some of the best rock musicians in the world and to pass on to future generations the rock music that has inspired rock fans around the world for decades. We want listeners to be able to hear great stories and life experiences directly from their favorite artists, as well as dig deeper into music theory and talk rock like no other show you've ever heard. This isn't about looking cool, it's about getting real and having a great time. Without further ado, let's start the show. All right. Hey. Welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast. I'm incredibly excited today as I get to speak to Angelo from Bracket about how things have been cracking on in the California punk rock scene for about the last 20 years or so, and to dig deeper into his mind than possibly anyone ever has before. So, welcome to the show, Angelo.
Whoa. Getting ready for that. Thank you.
So, obviously, you've been a long-time member and guitar player with the band Bracket, and so it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, an honor of mine personally, because I've been rocking out to you guys' music since I was like a sophomore in high school. That was actually, I think, even just shortly before you joined the band when they started doing those Fat Music compilation albums, and they put Bracket on those. But, obviously, some of my favorite albums have been featuring you as well. So I want to thank you for, entertaining me on road trips, getting me pumped for work and for workouts, and basically being a part of my life for the last 20 years or so. So thanks for the great music.
Oh yeah. Well, thanks for appreciating it. We've been doing it a long time. Not that you're old, but, and not that we are either, but, thanks for having me for sure.
Yeah. So before we dig into some of the questions I want to get to today, I'd really like to just kind of, for you to just give us your backstory, maybe explain how you became a musician in the first place, kind of how the decision was made to bring you in to replace Larry in Bracket, obviously, and how your longevity in one of the longer running active punk bands has made you the man and the musician you are now.
It's a long, boring story. And I'm really good at doing that, telling those. So I'll try to be succinct. But Marty in the band is my older cousin, and so from a young age, I looked up to him. I mean, before Bracket was Bracket, it was Marty and his friends, Larry, Zack, and Ray. And they were teenagers and they all, played music. And I just thought they were cool older kids, that I looked up to, like I said, when I was like, I think I wanted to play guitar because my big cousin, Marty, played guitar. So, So when they started playing like covers of I don't know, old classic rock stuff, they were like in middle school, I think, and I sort of learned how to play guitar on my own, and with my parents hired a guitar teacher, and I was like 10, 11 maybe. But I never really learned how to play music the way that he was an awesome guy, and he still is. He's still around. But I ended up just wanting to emulate my my older cousin and his buddies in what they were back then called high output. And so fast forward a few years, I was in high school and I got a 4-track. Whatever those are, those little 4-track recorder things. Yep. And I started recording cover songs of Bracket in my bedroom because not only, so they were cool to me when I was a little kid, but then when they were Bracket and they were touring and they were, playing some music that was new and different to me. See, I told you, this is not going to, I can go on and on. So then let's fast forward again, because we can't be here all day. I was, for a very brief period of my life, I was going to a gym, if you can believe that. And Marty also, he probably stuck with it longer than I did. So we'll say he was probably at the gym twice a day. I ran into him, and you know, we stayed in touch, but they were putting out records on Fat, and you know, going on tour and coming back, and I didn't see him a whole lot, but we ran into each other at the gym one day in Santa Rosa, near, like, in Sonoma County where we live, and he didn't really go into detail, but he said that Larry sort of, like, without making a real announcement, kind of wasn't playing with them right now. They didn't know what was going to be happening, but they wanted to keep going as a band, and they weren't sure what his plans were. He just sort of, I think he like stayed. They were on tour, and he stayed in one of the towns that they were touring in or something. I should know the story better, but I don't remember exactly. Yeah. Anyway, he just asked if I wanted to try playing with them, you know, maybe just temporarily or whatever, because he had heard all my embarrassing 4-track covers of Bracket songs, and so that basically it went from there. I got together with them. It was surreal playing with you know, guys that I looked up to from the time I was a kid, and then was, you know, fascinated with the music that they were putting out as Bracket. But I knew how to play a lot of the songs because of that same reason. So it just kind of worked out. So I feel super, you know, lucky and appreciative, and I'm not sure how that all worked out that way, but Larry never really came back. And the rest is
they're coming for you.
yeah, the fire truck's coming for me. So anyway, that's kind of how I started playing with them, and that was, I think it was in 1998. So it's been more than 20 years, which is crazy to say. Yeah. Well, did I answer the question? I think I did, and then some,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because, you know, when band members leave bands, there's usually kind of like a vetting out process. It kind of seems like you kind of were like close enough to be like, hey, you know, we know that you know our stuff. So I'm surprised they didn't make you do like some like weird audition where you had to like stand up in front of like the band and play naked, or any sort of hazing method or something.
Oh, it was a hazing enough to just, you know, I mean, I can't quite remember, but I remember just the thought of driving over there. And I mean, I knew them for many years, but not knowing really how it was going to turn out. And honestly, I was like 19 or so, 18 or 19, and I had never played with anybody. I sat in my bedroom playing music and recording stuff by myself. So not only had I never played in a band, what did I think I was doing trying to join Bracket, you know? But it all worked out. And so it was nerve-wracking, even though they were always, you know, patient and kind and excited to see where we went after that. And I think somehow we all got lucky enough that that we all progressed together. It obviously became part of the, I mean, Marty's my family anyway, but we're best friends and family, and I think we evolved musically together. And I definitely don't think I personally took us in any direction that we wouldn't have gone in, but I do think that Marty and I like kind of played off each other as I got more comfortable in the band and got more comfortable in my own, you know, like maybe not necessarily songwriting, but ideas for music and influences that we both started to share. So it kind of took the band in a different direction. And while we've disappointed a lot of people for the last 20 years not touring, it's not, I swear, everybody, I'm going to make this statement. It's not just my fault. It's not when Angelo joined the band, they stopped touring. It was just sort of a coincidence. So we have continued to record and make music that we are, you know, really proud of. And we've played a few shows every few years, and that's probably the most that anybody's going to get out of us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, cool. I mean, I think the evolution of the music is one thing that I would definitely want to talk about, and I think that we can get into that a little bit more in just a second. But I think even the fact that obviously Marty was always like the kind of the front man, lead singer. But if I'm not mistaken, now I don't have the liner notes of every single song or anything, but I believe on the last album, Too Old to Die Young, didn't you actually sing a couple of those songs, lead vocals?
Yeah, and let's see, two or I can't remember. There's two or three songs that I sang, and Zach sang lead vocals on one of the songs too. And yeah, that was also like part of the I keep using the word evolution, I think, but just the progression of how the process of making Too Old to Die Young was different than it had been in the past, and some of that was just a natural progression of what we wanted to do at that time, and it also just we just kind of came at writing and coming up with the songs for that in a different way, which then lent itself to having whoever came up with the song sing it. And
Yeah.
Marty, like Marty has he has a negative ego. Like he was the one that was pushing us to sing the songs that we wrote. And he wouldn't let us back out of it. We were both saying, no, you do it. You're the singer, but no, he's always been, we all know he is a gifted musician and songwriter, and I've looked up to him in both of those aspects for a large chunk of my life, both as a fan of the band and as a member of the band. But he's just always been very what's the word, like not only supportive but wanting us to be more a part of it, and not wanting any sort of spotlight, I guess. So it's definitely pushed the rest of us to feel a little more comfortable, even though my biggest thing with him was some of my favorite bands, I mean, Beatles excluded, when another member sings a song, it's always like it's not my favorite thing, but he didn't.
Well, the one good thing is you guys all have complementary vocal like harmonies with each other, so it's not even that noticeable that it's like, oh, that's not Marty anymore. It's just slightly different enough to be like, oh wait, that is somebody else singing that song. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with how it turned out, and it was fun to do something different. And it's true, like you said, I don't think there's many songs in since I joined the band on any of the records that don't have all of us singing. For the most part, we're all singing harmonies on the songs, even if Marty's singing the lead vocals. So I think it all kind of blends together anyway.
Yeah. Now, I kind of consider Bracket to be like a punk rock pioneer band. I know you probably had that same feeling when you were kind of growing up, like, there's like No Effects and Lagwagon and Screeching Weasel, all these guys out there. You kind of touched on it, like joining a band like that was kind of getting some notoriety. You ever look at that and just like think like, man, what the heck? Like what did I get myself into this? This is a crazy ride. And then also, can you give us some insight as to what the ride's like now? You got like family, kids, back problems? I don't know.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, I could definitely, like, you get caught up in this is just what it's been for 20 something years. But even now I will think back to, myself back then or whatever. And first of all, the funny thing is I discovered all those fat bands because of being a Bracket fan. And so it was like Bracket, this is probably backwards for most people. Bracket was the gateway drug to No Effects and Lagwagon and all those fat bands, and that was just because I was always interested in what Marty and them were doing, and so it's just kind of a funny perspective to say that listening to Bracket got me into punk, and then somehow I got to be a part of the band. So. And then coming not necessarily full circle, but I remember the first time, meeting Fat Mike and talking to him, and it just was surreal because it was like, okay, I joined Bracket, and now I'm sitting here talking to the lead singer of NoFX, who I was listening to, and in high school, and it was just yeah, I was lucky. I had a connection that and an opportunity that not a lot of people get to have. And some would say it's a curse rather than an opportunity. But
Yeah.
and then as far as now, yeah, I mean, a lot could be said about what we're up to now. Not that we're doing tons of things, but all of us, as you can imagine, as time goes on, we have families and jobs and responsibilities that are mostly good, but also just get in the way of or complicate the ability to do stuff as much as we'd like to. Not to mention all the things that this whole world is experiencing the last
Yeah.
couple of years. But
I mean, you couldn't have toured last year even if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. So in some ways, not to make light of all the terrible things that we have all experienced, but I was thinking about it the other day. It's kind of like the current situation kind of matches what Bracket's been willing to do for many years. So it's just like the whole world had to slow down to match up with what we could pull off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm joking, obviously, but yeah, we played much planning and forethought and all of that went into 2 shows that we played in February of last year. So we just made it by the skin of our teeth, or whatever that saying is, because I think as we were playing those 2 shows mid-February, we were just starting to hear about COVID things, but it seemed like, something that wasn't going to be what it ended up being. So I think if we would have delayed those 2 shows anymore, it may have been another decade before we got out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have families and kids and jobs and sore backs, and yet still, love. We still have a lot of. We love playing music, and we are proud of what we've done, and hope to keep doing stuff in some way.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I really wanted to start doing this podcast, because I actually had a son this year. He's 7.5 months old. And I really want to introduce him at some point to all the awesome bands that I listened to growing up. And he can go watch this and be like, oh, shit, I really like Bracket. They're freaking awesome. This is the band that my dad was listening to all these years or whatever. And, speaking of that, my favorite Bracket album is actually the first album you were on, which was When All Else Fails, which a friend of mine saw on a record store shelf and bought it for me because he knew how much I like Bracket. And it was probably like the best offhand gift I'd ever received. I was like, you bought me this album? Like, that's cool. Like, thanks. Like, this is awesome. And it had awesome songs. Like, everyone is telling me I'll never win if I fall in love with a girl from Marin, Yoko Ono, and No Brainer, and Cynically Depressed. I'm like, these are great songs. And I'd say some of those songs should be in some sort of like punk rock hall of fame. So I got to ask you, like, what was the experience like going into that album? What kind of mindset did you have? Were you just like, what the heck am I doing here? Or were you like, all in?
Pretty much. Making When All Else Fails was, I just look back very fondly at that on that time, because it was all really new. It was the first time I had ever been in a studio. I think that we had been in the studio. We recorded 1 or 2 things, like one-off songs, maybe a few months after I joined the band. But When All Else Fails was very different and exciting for me, because it was a full album, and we were like, we all took 2 weeks off of work, and that was all brand new. I'd never done that, and also we had been learning and playing those songs that Marty had written for months and months, and so it was all like the first for me. It was hearing these songs playing in a room, and then getting to record them and work with Ryan Green at Motor Studios, and then seeing it to the end where it was mixed and released and stuff. So it's Marty will very publicly admit that that's not his favorite record of ours.
Yeah, which I saw something about that, how he was disappointed because he wanted more harmonies and stuff to go into it. And I'm like, it sounds absolutely flawless in my opinion. Like, I think he's just being overly analytical.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's the way that he feels about our music. You know, I think he is, yeah, overly analytical. But a lot of people liked it, and a lot of people still do like it. And whether I think it's our best batch of songs or not doesn't matter, because to me it was just, it was there's a song called "A Place in Time," right? So that album just holds a special. I'm gonna roll up my window. A special place in time, if you will, for me, because I can listen to that and think back on all those experiences that were brand new and exciting for me.
Yeah,
And I
that's
can
awesome.
probably
Yeah.
say that about every album that we've recorded for different reasons. So
Yeah, and I mean, being like, obviously, we'll get into it a little bit in a second, but you guys have your own record label now, or I should say, your own recording studio now, and some other
yeah,
things that go into it, so you can put your time into it, right? But before I get into that, the one thing I want to speak about is I think that Bracket has a very unique sound. I think it's one of the most defining things about Bracket, and it's like you guys kind of have harmonies and melodies vocally, but then you also kind of like throw in these out of the ordinary chord progressions with like fifths and seventh chords and stuff like that to kind of take away that kind of pop sound and make it more a bit
yeah,
more melancholy. I mean, is that
uh-huh.
deliberate or is that just kind of the natural way you guys have always played?
Yeah. I mean, I I guess it would, the best answer I could give you is it's probably a little of both of those things. Deliberate because it's interesting to us. Yeah, just that we like the way that it sounds to it just makes the song more complex and interesting to us. And you know, we obviously hear that and appreciate that in other songwriters. And it's just something that, I mean, I learned a lot of weird chords from playing with Marty, and
Yeah,
I think his songwriting has been influential on me for sure. And yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make, I don't know if it made sense, but having, you could have the same melody in one song and playing more kind of predictable chords, and that same melody might take on a totally different sound, or like you said, a melancholy feeling or whatever, um, when you throw in a weird chord, which
yeah,
we like to do, as you can tell. And thanks
yeah,
for hearing that and appreciating that, because that's definitely what that's one of the things that is exciting and challenging about what we try to do. Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's awesome because I think it's the very first thing that I heard about it. I was like, well, that you'd expect like a C major to come in here, and it's not. It's something totally different. I'm like, well, that just
Yeah.
flattened out and brought a whole different kind of sound to it. So it's pretty cool to see
Right.
that and hear that, and especially keep that consistently through the years. I mean, most bands, you know, they'll throw in one song like that and be like, well, that's our experimental song, right? And then you guys are just like, that's us. That's our sound for the whole time. So
It's
it's been
our
pretty awesome to hear.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice when I mean, it's funny because we'll get different reactions to that aspect of our music, and everyone kind of says it in a different way, but we all know what they're talking about. You know, they'll say like, that chord just sounds wrong, but it's kind of okay, or you
Yeah.
know, or whatever. And honestly, there have been times where we've had to listen to things a few times to make sure, is that weird or is that just wrong? You know, whether it's talking about a weird harmony or a weird chord.
Yeah.
But I think we don't mind kind of skirting the edge of wrong if we're getting to do something that's interesting or challenging to us and probably to our listeners.
Yeah. I think it's been awesome. Now, if the
Thank you.
Instagram teasers can be believed, you guys have a new album in the works, right? So can you give us any information or give us a sneak peek of how that's going, when you expect to maybe have that finished, or like the
Yeah.
songwriting process so far?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'll be kind of cryptic because, so we have to be careful saying we're working on a new album, because for some bands that means the album will be done in 2 weeks and it'll be out in three months, and so we like people to know that we're not completely giving up on all of this, but saying that we're working on it doesn't mean we're sitting in the studio every day. But yes, we do have I think we have like 12 or 13 songs that are written, like lyrics and vocal melodies and chords, and we have demos of them recorded, which is really just a click track and guitars. And then,
that's a way to practice the song usually for the whole band, right?
Yeah, and the next step. So obviously, we're going to do this in a similar way than as we have for the last few, which is our drummer lives a few states away in Colorado, Ray, and so once we've got all the songs kind of ironed out and know exactly how we want the chords and the bass and the guitar to go, we'll have kind of rough tracks of those with a click track, and then we'll send it to Ray, send those to Ray, and just kind of let him mess around with it, and then book some time for him to come out and record drums, and then we will, slowly re-record everything to our actual standards. And because right now it's like I have a little effects pedal, and I'm just recording guitar straight into, I have a laptop and Pro Tools, and then just have the click on. And then so when Zach and I have been getting together, it's just like I said, we're going at our own pace, which may even be slower than our usual pace, but but part of that is not to sidetrack, but Zach is playing in another band that is probably currently more active than Bracket. They actually had a show scheduled for the end of last month that had to be postponed because of tricky COVID regulations and things, and making sure everybody was safe. But so he's playing in a band called Here Comes the Comet, and they're recording an album, and I think they're a lot closer to being done with their record than Bracket. So he keeps busy with that, and I started a band with a couple of people, and we've also got some things cooking up in that direction. So
what's that band called?
Guilty Party.
Guilty Party.
Yeah. Nothing really is on the back burner. We're just kind of keeping everything's at a simmer right now. Although even I would say Zach's band, like I said, is probably a few steps ahead of everybody else as in our little camp. But Guilty Party was something that came out of playing, probably initially came out of playing the last show that we played on Valentine's Day last year. We kind of decided what bands we were going to ask to play with us, because it's so infrequent that we play. I think the last time we played a show was the Fat 25th anniversary in like 2015. So we just figured we would ask some bands that we admired and we thought might be able to, first of all, would be into playing with us, and might be able to play where we wanted to play, which was in Santa Rosa and San Francisco 2 nights in a row. So anyway, luckily we got a few bands that we were fans of to play with us, and it was fun, because it was kind of like they were all bands that we were fans of, and luckily they were able to make the arrangements to play with us, including Mercy Music, one of my favorite bands that came all the way from Las Vegas to play 2 shows with us in Sonoma County and in San Francisco. Anyway, I got off track there. So we played with Toy Guitar, another one of our favorite Fat bands, and I struck up a friendship with Rosie, their drummer. Just kind of, we talked a couple of times, getting, preparation for our our one night tour, or 2-day tour. And a few months into the pandemic, we were talking about music and feeling stagnant and not knowing what to do. And I said, I have some songs that aren't really bracket songs, but we just decided to give it a shot, kind of a from home pandemic collaboration thing.
Nice.
And it, we stayed in touch, and I kept sending her song ideas, and she wrote some lyrics and came up with some song ideas. And we got together, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be a fun thing to play with some different people, just a different experience. Similar music for sure. If you like bracket or toy guitar, I think that people will be into it once we really get out there. We had our first show scheduled, and it had to be canceled because, unfortunately, Rosie, the drummer, broke her arm, and she is healing.
So you're saying she can't do the old Def Leppard thing?
Well, you know what? I didn't ask her. I didn't want to put too much pressure on her. We had such momentum, one practice and a show ready to go. And, but that's okay. 'Cause we're all busy too. So it was just like, okay, well then we'll give you some time to heal, and we'll pick back up where we left off. But yeah, we have plans to record at least an EP sometime soon. And, her friend Rob plays bass. He's been in a couple of bands. Oh no, the names are escaping me. I think Long Knives. But I literally met him on the first day of our first practice, and we just all clicked really well. And
Nice.
So it's fun. It's fun to have something else. And yeah. Oh, so Rosie gets her cast off Friday. So
Nice.
we're going to make some plans for later this year. So watch out.
Excellent. I actually wanted to bring up some of the solo stuff you've been doing anyway. So it's good that you brought up the side project. But one particular song that I wanted to bring up was you did a cover of the song That Lucky Old Sun.
Yeah.
How in the hell did you decide to pick that song from a 1940s, pop song basically, or radio song? And what does that song mean to you? I mean, you did a great job. I just was like, wait, this is definitely a cover song. I've heard this song before, but it's like my grandma played it.
It's funny. Somebody, I can't remember exactly, but somebody sent a message or something when that was released, saying, I think they didn't recognize that it was a cover, and just said, "Wow, that's your best song yet," which cracked me up because I didn't write it. So I'll be honest. The first time I heard it was on a Brian Wilson album from like 10 years ago. Brian Wilson is a huge influence in many ways, but that album was not one of the best. But that song I just kind of liked the melody of it. And then I heard a Willie Nelson version of it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know Willie Nelson did it. And then it turns out it's an even older song than I thought.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been covered a few times, but I wasn't sure where you'd heard. I guess the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson makes the most sense because it's the most vocally similar to Bracket.
Yeah, and I think probably the cover was more. I think the Willie Nelson's version was a little more like in my head when I did that, but definitely, yeah. That I don't know that I would have heard that song if not for the Brian Wilson album that I'm not even sure if I still have that. Like I said, I respect and love everything he's done, but that wasn't my favorite. But the solo stuff has just sort of served as stuff to do where I don't have to think like, okay, this is going to be a Bracket song, or and just getting more comfortable with recording by myself, and learning how to use the newest Pro Tools software. And
I feel like the recording and technology side of it's harder than actually playing the stuff.
Probably, yeah. Well, it's equal parts,
Yeah.
equally challenging for me, and just finding time.
Yeah.
That. It's not as we all. I love my job, but we've for many years said, "Oh, I wish we could just do this for a living.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? We would be so much more prolific."
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the solo stuff that I've recorded will find some of those songs will find their way, I think, on future things with both bands. I think
Hmm.
we might be using one or two songs from there on the next Bracket record, and I mean different, just kind of as a what do you call it, like a rough draft or an
Yeah.
idea to and kind of bracket it up a little bit. And Guilty Party, we've been playing one of the songs. What I forget what it's called, but it's one of the waltzy ones, and we started playing it just more straightforward pop punk ish,
Gotcha.
and
Three,
it
four
lends
timing
itself.
still or what?
Nope,
Okay.
nope, changed it. Not
Nice.
against 3/4 timing in punk. That's fun, but
Yeah. It
this
definitely
one,
sounds more waltzy if you do anything in 3/4 timing though.
yeah, yeah,
So I have to ask, are you okay to stick around for like just maybe 3, 4 more minutes?
yeah, of course.
Perfect. So I have to ask about Warren's song because it
Hmm.
appears on, well, different versions. Obviously, there's like 29, I think now. There was actually even 2 full albums of Warren songs at this point.
Right.
So you know, I kind of have to ask because I'm not even sure like the narrative anymore. I know it was started from like a friend of the band at the time.
Hmm.
Is it still about this Warren person, or is it kind of just more like a metaphor for living through life? And what's Warren's relationship to the band? How is it like these songs keep cropping up about Warren?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it. It sort of became about more just um, not specifically about that person in real life. Uh, so yeah, the history of Warren goes back to before I was in the band, when they
Yeah.
were in like elementary school. And yeah, there's a real guy named Warren who they went to school with, or who Zach and I don't know if everybody. Anyway, they knew of him, and I think he got like picked on in school, and he was just one of those kids that doesn't get treated the same as everyone else, or
Mhm.
there was kind of like that kind of stuff. And I don't know how they actually. Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to answer this question, but I don't know how they got the idea, or how they decided to do it. But that first album had 2 songs, and those were definitely, I can't remember the words exactly, but those were written like perspective of like a kid, a
Yeah.
kid being picked on or whatever. And then as you see, if you listen to the lyrics of the songs as those Warren songs add up to like in the 20s, it is more just about life, or worries, or anxieties, or difficulties. And so they've become something, just their own thing, nothing to do with like I said, with Warren.
Yeah.
But I think after, I don't know at what point the band decided this, but it definitely became a thing that, which one of these new songs is going to be the Warren song. And that was just something that we wanted to do. And people are interested in it and want to know about it, and it pisses people off sometimes, especially the Requiem album that was all Warren songs and all out of order in the numbers. Still get kind of like annoyed comments about why did we do that? And it's really just because
Yeah. I mean,
it just was funny to
why
us.
does
I mean,
everything have to be something specific about a
yeah,
thing? I mean, it's been called a concept album, right? Requiem's a concept album. It's really just you wrote a bunch of songs and you're like, fuck it, let's just call it all Warren song and change the
yeah,
number.
that's exactly it. I mean, like I said, we are inspired and excited by doing things musically that are different that we think are different or unique or challenging to us. But we also can be inspired by just doing dumb things just to say that we did it. Like the next or not, was it the next? No, I guess 2 albums later, the last page, is a Warren song technically, and it's one song and it's like 70 something minutes long.
I was listening to it today. I'm like, this is hilarious.
That's the Road Trip album. If you,
I mean, the thing is, there's some awesome, like, there's some great guitar work in the middle. Like, you get some like heavy riffs in there too. It's like you listen through that album, you're like, they're definitely playing with some stuff here, and it's actually really cool to hear that you just put out an album. I mean, it's all digital. I don't think you can even buy it. I'm not sure if you can, but like as far as physical copies. But I think that between Requiem and the last page, people who get mad about that stuff, they're just looking for like some answers, right? It's like, just listen to the music. Look how good the music is when you listen to it. And I think, like, you know, what would be a really cool concept album is you take Requiem, you take the last page, you take all the other Warren songs, you put it on a triple album and call it the definitive Warren trilogy album. Well,
there's a cash cow in the making. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's like, yeah, we've had people, I mean, I think personally, the last page is my favorite thing that we've done. And I can also admit that it's not something that you can sit down and listen to unless you have that much time, and you're not going to have to pause it and lose your place or whatever.
Yeah,
so we had a lot of people that were right. We had a lot of people that were saying, like, why didn't you just break it up? Because we had to weave it together. I mean, what took so long, other than some kind of musically challenging things and harmonies that we were trying, that, you know, it was very experimental and fun to create. And it also was a total pain in the ass to weave it together to become one, because these were all the cat's out of the bag. If anyone really thought that we played it, I know no one did, but
you didn't play 70 straight minutes all in one sitting.
90, yeah, like 90 something Pro Tools sessions, and deciding how it would fit together the best, that we, you know, to the best of our ability, and you know, like all of that stuff, like wanting things to go from in the same key to the next thing, and it was a huge challenge and a lot of fun. And there were times where we weren't sure we were going to pull it off, and some people may think that we didn't, but we're happy with it, and it's fun to listen to and remember, you know, all these different things that we stuck on one song or one album, I guess. And I think that in some ways all of us tried things in a different way, because you knew if you did this, if, you know, just a weird 30-second song or piece of a song, if it's a total disaster, it's just one little part, you know, and like, and it just became a part of the whole thing. So I think Ray kind of drummed his butt off on certain parts that he was able to, because it was like, okay, this is going to be a 30-second, not that he can't drum his ass off all the time, but I think he was a little more loose, because, you know, it's just like a little short bursts of songs that we were recording, and kind of brought something out different, I think, in Marty's songwriting, and a little bit of mine and Zach's, and the way that we played and stuff. So yeah, I could go on and on. I very fond of that.
Yeah, it's awesome
album. But
I mean, I know how Ray feels sometimes, because I play drums, but I play guitar and bass and sing and all that stuff too. But it's like when you have to play the same repetitive thing on drums, or like you're playing it really fast, but you're playing it for a long time, you're like, oh, why did I do this to myself? Like, now I have to play this like often.
Yeah.
Like, let's just make it easy on myself. But it's like, you always try to give yourself a challenge, but at the same time, you're like, I have to repeat this again and again. And it's like, that's too tough.
Oh, and we've all felt that for different reasons, you know, like, oh, all right, we recorded that 3-part harmony with a part that's, you know, too high for any of us to sing pitch perfect ever again. But we've had a few people ask if we would ever play the last page from front to back, or whatever, from beginning to end, and we have never done that, and we probably never will. But we did we did learn about the first like 5 or 6 minutes of the song and played it. I think we played it at both of the shows last year.
Nice.
And that was fun. That was like it was it was a different
How
challenge
interesting is
because
that when you have to go back and learn your own music again?
yeah, well, that's what happens when we only play every few years.
Yeah.
But that was something different altogether because that record was never, there wasn't a lot of us getting together as a band and working those songs out.
Yeah.
And so it was a fun challenge, I guess, to listen to it and learn all those weird changes. And it turned out good, I think. I don't know if there's any video floating around of that, and I don't know if I want to see it, but that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So not only was Bracket a punk rock pioneer from the 90s, but now they're also the punk rock pioneers of virtual recording sessions in the 2000s and 2020s.
Yeah. I guess so. That's maybe not the most punk rock thing, but maybe we're just redefining what punk rock means.
Maybe you're ahead of the trend. I mean, kids nowadays do the exact same thing, but it's because they can't go to school and they can't practice anymore. So you're just giving them something to look forward to. You're like, hey, we've been doing this for like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't always have to play. I mean, at the same time, we obviously wish we all lived in the same city. It's like, I am thankful. We're all thankful that we've found a way to keep creating music together, even if we don't get to play together all the time. But so that technology has allowed us to put out our last few records without having to take a month off of work to get together.
Yeah, I mean the sound doesn't change in my ear. Like Cloud 8 off of Too Young to Die Old is like immediately rocks from that album, and every other song on that album is pretty awesome too. So to be able to do it that way and still come out with a great result, in my opinion, doesn't change how much you guys actually are good at what you do. So I think that's pretty awesome that you guys might not even get a practice like a normal band normally, like go in the studio for like 3 months and then create an album, and then 3 months later it's popped out. It's like, yeah, it might take you 5 years, but the result is all that matters, right?
Yeah, and it obviously, I think it helps. I know it helps that we have played together for so long. We kind of, even if we've tinkered our sound and not every song or album sounds the same, I think that there's some intuitive part of how we learn the songs that we're coming up with, and how we're I don't know if I'm making my point, but like, I think if we send songs to Ray with with some guitars and bass and a click track, he intuitively kind of knows, oh, this would probably work, this is how we would play this song.
Yeah.
So I think we're able to
so he's not coming back with like crank drum tracks anymore. He's like do 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 do.
No, it's like he never left. It's just yeah. So hopefully, like I said, we're busy with other musical things and other just life things, but I think people can expect to hear more long, slow teasings about a new album in the coming months, and we'll see how. I would say now it's got some things about it that are different from anything else we've ever done, and there's also some things that are familiar. And I would say a lot of people liked Too Old to Die Young, and
That's a great album.
we're thank you. I like it too. I'm not saying I don't, but
some people like it, not me, but other people do.
Right. There are a few people that like it. It was, a lot was said about the fact that we were back on Fat, and it was a little scaled back, experimentally than the last few. And that was something we intentionally wanted to do. And it was a different, honestly, like I think a lot has been said by us in other interviews, but it was a challenge of its own to try to pare things down and make an album that was not pushing every boundary that we could come up with.
Yeah.
And that was fun, and a lot of people appreciated that, I think. And then in some way it's satisfying to hear when people say Too Old to Die Young was good, but I really miss the experimental, stuff
Yeah.
of the previous albums, because I think we do too. We're happy with everything that we've done, and so I would hope, and I would imagine that this next bunch of songs, we're able to, and I think that we want to, not let we're not setting out to make just a straightforward pop punk album.
Yeah. Dip into both
I'm
beds,
sure
if
it
you
will. It definitely will. It will be. It's going to sound like us, but we're not. I think specifically Too Old to Die Young was like, let's try something a little more straightforward. And I think we're just going to write the songs that we write with this new one, and see how it sounds.
Perfect.
But I would love to, to get to experiment a little more like we were with the previous albums. And
Yeah. Well,
I think
I'll
that's
look
what
forward to it. I
we'll be
guarantee
doing.
whatever year it comes out, and it's going to be one of the best albums of the year. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah. So that's pretty much all I got, but we'll add some links to the music in the show notes below the episode. You have anything else
Okay.
before we go to kind of let everybody know and fans know about anything today, or you got pretty much everything out today?
I think I got everything and more than anyone would ever want to know about us. But Zach and Marty and Ray say hi and thank you. And we all want to thank everybody for everybody that is still caring and waiting, for sticking around all these years, and just appreciating us for what we are, which is one of the slowest moving bands in punk. And just know that the reason that we keep making music is there are a few people that appreciate what we do, and so thanks to everybody, and watch out, there might be another album in the next
Another two-city tour as well.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah, but in the meantime, obviously, look out for Zach's band, Here Comes the Comet, and my other band, Guilty Party, because we're all cooking up some musical things. I keep saying cooking up. I think it's because it's lunchtime, but
yeah. Well, I do want to thank you, Angelo, for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate it. It's an awesome conversation. And if you haven't checked out their music yet, well, it's never too late, because we'll put those links to to the music in the show notes below. And obviously Angelo's solo stuff as well. And if you obviously have any links for Guilty Party, or Here Comes the Comet, or Waiting for the Comet?
Here Comes the Comet. Yeah.
Here Comes the Comet, yeah.
We'll
get some of those links into the show notes as well.
Sounds good.
So awesome. If you guys like what you heard on the show, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends on social media. Also, if you want to check out some of our written content or any of the products or merch that we have available, go to poweredbyrock.com to check out our absolutely free rocking blog, where we have album reviews, interviews, and other lists to keep you entertained, as well as our gear that you can buy to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, rock on.